Hello everyone, let's talk about Lif, a unit that I should have covered, honestly, way earlier. I'm really sorry about the delay, especially considering we're like halfway into the banner at this point. But, well, the game has not been all too kind to me lately, so I had very little motivation to work on this. I should also say that if people are curious about my thoughts on the Fae channel, just do tell me, because if that's something that you want me to actually cover, because I do have a lot of things to say about it, then just go ahead and, leave me a comment telling me to do so. I'll then see if I record it tomorrow, we'll see. But yeah, I did my summons on this banner for Legendary Leaf, obviously the colorless version, not the red, that's on screen right now. I got 3 copies in 1,100 orbs, and I got Pity Fisted by Lion King Chan a 6th time at 14.5% today. Finding the interest of just, in any way, shape, or form, to just motivate yourself on working on anything is really difficult when stuff like this happens, and it's not the first time. The last Leaf banner, I also got to 14.5%. This one I got Pity Fisted actually at 15%, my bad. So, can't wait for the next Leaf banner where I'll get to 15.5. This is awful. Anyway, let's talk about Lif because, well, this is why we're here. So Lif comes in with, Sökkvabekkr, which is a weapon that actually aged a lot better than Thrasir's sorry excuse of a weapon, which was basically just a bootleg null follow-up. Seriously, I just cannot believe this. You can, by bootleg follow-ups, I mean... bootleg follow-ups. Bootleg null follow-up is it's basically null follow-up with only half of the skill. That's basically what Thrasir's weapon does. Here, on the other hand, you get an extra follow-up. This is really good. There are many ways to use this, and the fact that he actually gets speed from it is not bad. Okay? It's not bad because in this case there's a lot of things that would basically just shut down your chance of hitting twice, and this basically makes it a speed check, which is very welcome. Open the future, honestly, almost surprised that he has it, but at the same time I'm like, he's just the worst New Year Alfonse with it, so, I'm not too shocked or disappointed that he has it. In fact, I'm kind of happy he does. And then distant counter. Look at me, I'm unit number 30 with distant counter at this point. It's getting to a point where we have at least 2 banners a month with distant counter. We have distant counter on this guy, we have distant counter on Legendary Hector, we have distant counter on Nagi. Oh, and we also have distant counter on Nyla. I'm just counting the banners that are up right now. I just want to point this out, we're getting to this level of distant counter units. Next up is Deadly Balance, which, when you're at over 50% HP, you basically inflict 5 attack and defense. Why am I not also pointing out the fact that it works if you are, hit with a penalty? Here's why. Because it's the most dumb requirement I've ever seen. First off, the penalty does not get removed. So, okay. You want me to get debuffed, even though it actually more or less will give me less benefits than it will do, drawbacks. That's good. But you need to be under half HP. So basically, for the second part to have an effect, you need to be at 20 or less HP, at least counting an unmerged leaf, right? A lift, sorry. You need to be at 20 or less HP. and then you need to be hit by a debuff. 9 times out of 10, you're going to just die at that point. You're basically dead. I'm sorry, but what the heck is this skill? Oh, look, if you're dead, you can heal yourself. I mean, what? Yes, it helps healing yourself with Open the Future, which is nice, but it's also very... Why, though? Like, that second condition could have been literally anything else and it would have been better. And then we have Time Pulse, which is very weird that he has this. Time Pulse is supposed to be just this skill that's referencing tree houses with the turning the hands of time thing, just like rewinding time. Man, that sounds like something Alfonse wish he could do, but can't. Why the fuck is that in this kit? It's such a paradox to his character. It's kind of just hilarious at this point. But that's just me. Moving on to comparison, and this is where the main issue is going to be. So, Lif does not exactly have anything unique to him, and that's the biggest drawback that he has right now. Lif is a good unit, don't get me wrong, and obviously Sökkvabekkr is a much better weapon than whatever the heck Itsuki has. And yes, yes, you can combo the weapon into Wings of Mercy shenanigan in a very awkward manner, but you can. Honestly, though, if I'm being completely honest, instead of Wings of Mercy, I would point out to Escape Route. Escape Route Desperations. Or, no, just Escape Route, what am I saying? To just, like, have a dancer get hit by his weapon's effect. You take damage. You can now dance across the map. There you go. That's a good way to use Sökkvabekkr to your complete advantage. The thing that makes a weapon good or bad is when you have drawbacks that you can abuse and make it a good thing for you. Similar to how Thrasir has a weapon that inflicts debuff, well, if you have Idun / Brunya, it's quite a good weapon. Because the drawback is not exactly a drawback anymore, it's just a buff. Simple as that. And Sökkvabekkr is no exception. It's a pretty good weapon. As well as Deadly... I want to say Deadly Temptation, but that's a Ys 8 music track. Deadly Balance. That's also a pretty good skill, because it reduces stats, but it also gives you, effectively, just Special Fighter minus the guard effect. Even with the same restriction, in terms of HP. Which is pretty good. The problem is, if you want to stray from those skills, typically, you're going to do bad. I'm just going to point it this way. If you're going off of the weapon, or more importantly, off of the special for something like Gale Force, for something like a bit more damage like Ignis, or anything of the sort, you do not use Lif. You just don't. You use Itsuki, because Itsuki does the same thing, but cheaper. Itsuki also has one thing going for him, which is the fact that he can ploy a lot easier. That said, if you actually use a inheritable weapon instead of Sökkvabekkr, and you refine it to res, this problem is more or less alleviated. You can basically still use ploy just as well as Itsuki. Now, while I do say this, I do want to point out the fact that most of the set that I've showcased on the video for Itsuki can indeed be used on Lif. It's just that Lif will be harder to plus 10 and far more expensive. I will also want to point out the fact that New Year Alfonse is more or less a better version of Lif for the most part. Because he hits magic, or res rather, has more... No, actually, I think they have more or less the same attack, but his weapon is just way better. 5 across the board cooldown -1 instead of 4 across the board and follow-up is kind of a huge thing. And the fact that it's a 2 cooldown means that you can use Special Spiral, which is really good. New Year Alfonse is overall what I'd say just a better version of him. That said, he's also a blue mage instead of a sword unit, which means they're kind of doing different jobs. But I did still want to point this out because at the end of the day, right now, if you're planning on plus 10ing one of the two, it should be New Year Alfonse. Straight up. Being completely honest here, there's just nothing at all that Liv does that New Year Alfonse just don't do better. So, yeah. Anyway, with that said, do keep in mind I only have 2 builds showcase, but if you want to know more builds that work with him, okay, just watch my video about Itsuki. Itsuki's the video I've done about Itsuki. Any set that are on there can be used by him. Typically, you might have to change a refine around because, you know, he has less res than def, unlike Itsuki that has balanced def and res. Typically refining to res instead of defense. But other than this, it's basically the same thing. So that's why I only have 2 sets, because those are basically centered around Sökkvabekkr and Open the Future. So with that said, let's get started. So the set on the left. Things to keep in mind. This is mostly an enemy phase set. You're basically sitting at 67 attack, 48 speed, 44 def, 43 res. Deadly Balance does a -5 attack and defense, so effectively you're at 72 attack, 48 speed, which is pretty solid, as well as 49 def and 48 res. The reason why I say it's mostly enemy phase is because on player phase you basically have to hit, get hit, and then you proc. This is a bad thing. The reason why I say it's bad is very simple. In situations where you have to proc like this, just on the second hit, it's not so bad if it's something like Lunar Flash, Ragnalastra, specials with 2 cooldown like this one in this case, because Slaying Edge. It's not so bad. But there are exceptions. Serious and Open the Future. If you can't tell why, it's because they heal based on the HP removed when using the special. This is important because specials that heal off of damage won't be like, oh, I did 80 damage, therefore I heal for 40 with Aether. It's more like taking the HP of your enemy in consideration. In other words, if you're looking at something like a unit with 20 HP left and you Aether it for 100 damage, you still only heal for 10. So the problem is, in this case, if you attack, get hit, and then proc, your enemy might have like 10 HP left and you'll heal for like 2 HP, which is not exactly good. And that's kind of the problem in general. In other words, this is why it's mostly enemy phase, because you just get hit and proc with Deadly Balance, which is pretty solid and allows you to typically one-shot, and if you don't one-shot, you'll basically be able to wug them another time. That said, because you wug them another time, if you do, which should be rare, I mean, he does have 72 attack overall. If you proc Open the Future on them and you don't kill, you get to attack again because you're at 48 speed. This is where, you know, the fact that he has a lot of speed works out in your favor. Because then you get in a situation where you can just, you know, hit twice, and your second hit, because of Deadly Balance, will get Open the Future ready again. Meaning, on player phase, you'll be able to one-shot with Open the Future, you know, just like in enemy phase, which is pretty good. Now, if you want a more mixed phase version of this, look no further to the right side, which would be the Special Spiral set. Now, I will say one thing, and one thing only. This set is using Sökkvabekkr. So if you want to still use something like Slaying Edge with Special Spiral, which in this case works, I've been saying this a lot, but Special Spiral is not good on all 2 cooldown specials. It's bad on Fire Emblem, it's bad on Ruptured Sky, it's bad on Ragnall Astra, it's bad on Imperial Astra, I guess, it's bad on Lunar Flash, it's bad on any damage dealing special, because you're going to proc them anyway. There's no purpose in you having them ready from the get-go. One-shotting with those units is not exactly typical. And therefore, because it's not typical, what you want to do instead is just to run something like Wrath. If you can't run Wrath, you just don't care and run something like a lull. For example, if you're talking about Legendary Alm, no follow-up can be a better B slot in Arena. If you're outside of Arena, you'll typically want to use a lull skill instead. It's all, at the end of the day, just much better to go for something else than something as precise as Special Spiral. You're going to not gain that much from it, and it's actually going to hurt you in the long run, which is kind of awkward for you. So, with that said, in this case it works, because as I said before, this is a healing special, meaning as long as you proc it from the start, it's better. It's always better to just proc it and then, you know, get hit and do another hit in this case. Because, well, first off, it has more power than Ragnall Astra and so on. It does more damage, typically. And easily can be comboed into other skills to do even more damage. To put it in perspective, if you have Sökkvabekkr, you're at 48 def. 48 def is just 24 damage. And then you heal 25% of that, which is really solid. So at the end of the day, it's better to have Special Spiral for a unit like this if you want to have a player phase effect. And this works really well with Sökkvabekkr in general, if you're going to go with Special Spiral, because you'll typically just not have enough speed. Because you'll either do one of two things. You'll have Swift Sparrow, therefore your enemy phase doesn't have enough speed. You'll have attack speed solo, therefore your player phase doesn't have enough speed. You'll have speed res Bond, which is, you know, the same thing as usual. You'll have good speed on enemy phase, but not enough on player phase. It's kind of just really awkward as a result, which is one of the problems with Sökkvabekkr in general. It's a good weapon, but it's a bit awkward to use. It does help you where it matters, though. Getting an extra follow-up here basically means that Special Spiral is a lot better. But other than that, it's, you know, pretty iffy. I'd say Slaying Edge is typically going to be a bit better, unless you have Sökkvabekkr and you combo it into SK Prod Dancers. But that's just the way I look at things. Because if you hurt yourself, if you hurt multiple Dancers, which is very possible, just keeping them in, you know, around the same range, you can actually just combo this into him, dance, kill something else because you dance again. And that's kind of one of the things that makes him pretty solid with Sökkvabekkr. If you don't do that, Slaying Edge will typically do better. And Slaying Edge with Special Spiral is probably the way to go, in my opinion. But yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about Lif himself. Let's talk about the banner raid, shall we? So, this legendary banner is, it's something. I'll say that. It's something, alright. I'll go with the worst color to begin with, which is the blue color. As you can see, they have a whole lot of fodder right here. Oh boy. better pull that legendary Ephraim for sturdy stance too. Or how about that Lucina for Swift Sparrow? Yeah, or how about Lucas for that offensive AR skill? Whoa! Yeah, they just don't really have anything really going for them. The best they've got is Distant Death with Legendary Lucina, but frankly, Legendary Lucina should not be killed for such an awful skill, if I'm being completely honest. It's a useful skill here or there, but it's not worth the Legendary Lucina for it. As far as Blue is concerned, Lucas is absolutely worthless past the fact that he gives armored flowers, which are not exactly easy to get a hold of. Legendary Ephraim is a good Gale Force unit, but you don't need more than one. And Legendary Lucina is actually good. The only good blue unit of the bunch in terms of combat utility, outside of just, I'm a Gale Force unit, which, you know, when Rid exists, I'll just take Rid. Thank you very much. Go away, Ephraim. It's honestly such a bad color. You should try to avoid it like the pest. I didn't. But that's purely because I'm trying to plus 10 Lucina. So yeah. I did end up with a Lucas and an Ephraim. That was cool. As for the second worst color, that would probably be green, if I'm being honest. Now, don't get me wrong. Colorless is not amazing, okay? But it's better than green. Yune is a defense AR unit. Cool. That's already a bad start. A weapon that's very awkward because it actually only really works in vertical maps. So if you have any encounter with a horizontal map, your weapon is utterly worthless because it's for some reason only the 3 columns around the unit and not like the 3 columns also, you know, or the 3 rows around the unit as well, which I don't understand why they didn't do it this way, but whatever, I guess. At least for a C skill, and I think a weapon? No, our weapon is just giving her stats, never mind, it's just our C skill. Legendary Hector is okay, but he's kinda just, well, every axe armored unit out there. He also has been power crept completely lately by Memori. Memori essentially has the same effect as he does, except unlike him requiring to have more people on his side than the enemy, Memori is just, oh yeah, I just need one person, and I'll get the same effect. Oh, by the way, I also get 6 def and res for my trouble, and I get 3 res as well, which is not which is not like, you know, the stat that already has a bajillion point to begin with. Memori, as far as a unit is concerned, is just Legendary Hector, but better. So, there's that. But hey, he has this encounter. Hey. And then there's Hilda, which is actually a pretty decent unit that can serve as a support unit, but also a pretty good unit of her own. Not really any good fodder. Attack speed solo is decent. No follow-up is niche. Yes, you heard me. I do think no follow-up is a niche skill. It's really only worth a shit in Arena Assault. I don't understand anyone who fodders a goddamn no follow-up to anyone at this point. It's just such a niche skill. Even in Arena, I don't see like much use of it. Much use to get it on a different unit for. And it's just a very awkward skill overall. Still, Hilda is definitely worth pulling for as far as a unit goes, which is more than I can say about the other 2 greens. Now the last 2 colors are kind of more or less a tie. Also, I forgot to put this thing counter as yellow on Legendary Hector. Man, time has passed. Personally, I do think red is a bit better. But Colorless is also really, really solid. Kangas is a fantastic speed tank. Yes, I did say speed tank, but that's mostly at plus 10. It requires high merges to be very, very good. Otherwise, he's kind of in an awkward spot. But other than this, he's a pretty solid unit. Not so solid that I would be fine with getting 6 of him and 3 leaf, but you know. I'm still a bit bitter about that. That's kind of just how it is. Kangas is really good too because there's really not that many beast killers right now. As far as AR is concerned, the only beast killers that are on there, well, there's none. I think the only one that might be relevant is Picnic Flora. Otherwise, you just don't see any. Outside of maybe Picnic Felicia. But Picnic Felicia is only really a thing in... what's the word? AR offense, not defense. You'd never see Eliwood, or Brave Eliwood, I should say. In AR, you don't see Petra in AR, so like beast killers are really non-existent, unlike dragon killers, which gives them an edge because at this point you can just run Val and Shield and you basically have no weaknesses. There is a weakness, but the unit that can exploit this weakness are just non-existent. You just don't encounter them, which makes him a very solid unit. Leaf is also very potent, very, very, very strong unit. Attack Rest Push 4 is meh, and Death Smoke is not worth it, especially with Pan existing. But genuinely one of the best units of the game right now. And Loki, well, she has dual infantry, which would be a lot worse if it wasn't for the fact that there's a certain unit right now that really likes it, and most people can get it. The unit being Tethys. Tethys loves colorless dual infantry. I only got 1 copy of her in 1,100 orbs somehow. I don't get it. I kind of wish Kangas did the same thing, but, you know, that's just me. Still, dual infantry itself is really worth pulling for. Between having Tethys accessible for arena, or also healer, which is also pretty good to have in general, it's just overall enabling you a lot of units in AR. Not in AR, in arena, which is pretty nice. As far as red is concerned, I don't think I have to say much about Legendary Eliwood. I think most people have already seen my video showcasing Team Nagy, with Eliwood absolutely making that team one of the most busted team out there. It is an insane unit. Insane unit. Not really good fodder, and Death Blow should definitely be yellow here. I really need to update the color of some of these skills, because Death Blow 4 got a lot worse over time. Like, why would you use Death Blow 4, right? If Sturdy Impact is a thing, Mirror Impact is a thing, Swift Sparrow 3 is a thing. Hell, it goes down to a point where, why the fuck, right? Why the fuck would you run Death Blow 4 on Reinhardt? Now there's a weird one. He actually runs Swift Sparrow a bit better. He can actually quad with that. And that's only relevant for the units that would have tanked him anyway, even if he had Death Blow 4. And the fact that you quad means that you typically proc Luna. And the fact that you can proc Luna is kind of concerning, because it makes you extremely annoying to tank. Reinhardt can typically hit over 45 speed. I just want to point that out. So, even on this character, Death Blow 4 is not exactly a good option. Just like how Lilina does not really like Death Blow 4 anymore, she prefers to have Sturdy Impact. There's not a whole lot of characters that really like Death Blow 4 at this point, because there's just something better out there. But, you know, that's just how I feel about it. Byleth also has really, really good fodder. Having Fury 4, Wrath, and Ruptured Sky is insane. Ruptured Sky is also a 500 SP scoring skill with 2 cooldown, which is insane for Arena, because it means you score well while also doing quite good in terms of damage. Really wish we could get another 2 cooldown special like Ruptured Sky. That would be available for Beast Unit just for Nyla, but well, I suppose I can dream. Whenever that comes out, I'll definitely be pulling for it because Nyla is bae. But yeah, this is about how I feel about the banner. I do think overall, red is the best, green, colorless is the second best, then it's green, then it's blue. Green and blue should not be pulled on. Unless you really want Hilda, I don't think green is worth pulling for, and blue in general, just the only unit worth pulling in blue is Lucina. Do not pull on this banner, wait for her to come back in 4 months. Period. I can assure you, you're going to come out of this a much more happy person. Because god damn, dude. This is such a bad blue color. I was expecting to plus 10 Legendary Lucina this banner. I decided against it because of how bad the units on it are. The fact that all 3 units don't have fodder is just awful. Awful, awful, awful. But yeah, I think I've said about all I had to say about the Legendary banner. In conclusion, Lif is a pretty decent unit. The problem is just the fact that he's a Mythic hero. Kind of similar to Thrasir. Thrasir would be a good unit to plus 10 if she was not a Mythic. And Lif kind of falls into the same problem. I just don't see why anyone would plus 10 Lif. Not with New Year Alfonse being a thing. And I don't see why anyone would plus 10 Thrasir when it's a Mythic hero, when Durdry is a thing, which is a far, 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 far cheaper alternative and does more or less the same. I'm not joking when I say this. I do think Durdry at high merges and high investment actually outdoes a high merge Thrasir. Just like how New Year Alfonse is just a better Lif, in my opinion. These units should have been a better unit, similar to what they did with Halbindi, Legiarn, and Levitane. It was just a terrible move to make them legendary heroes. I've said it, and I'll say it again. It's not a good move. And Hell will also be very underwhelming if her stats are anywhere the stats that she should have considering the story mode. Honestly, all of the Book 4 heroes just did not age well, but to be honest, Hell was already kind of just not good, even on launch. As far as stats were concerned. And weapon as well. The weapon was okay. It was basically a power creep's weapon of the power creep version of Selif's weapon, but it only really works against mages, which is like, oh cool. That is so gimmicky, and therefore it was not good. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but I don't see Hell has been even being all as relevant as what she should be. Which is kind of a shame. But that's just the way I look at things. Anyway, as I said earlier in the video, if you do want me to, you know, do a video on the Fed channel and my thoughts on it, do leave a comment, basically telling so, I guess. And with that said, I think I'm going to leave it here. I hope you guys have a nice week, and I'll see you all later. Have a nice one, everyone.